All right, VIPs, welcome back to another incredible episode of the VIP Voice. Now, I want to ask you guys something. Have you ever been out in the woods, on a busy street, or even just in your own backyard and spotted an animal in distress, right? Or maybe injured, starving, abandoned, whatever the case may be. And then you thought to yourself, oh shit, now what do I do now, right? And believe me, it certainly happens more often than one would think. And sadly, a lot of these animals are left to suffer, without any help. Well, on today's show, we're diving deep into that world specifically. And me personally, and again, I'm going to be biased here, I don't think there's any better person to guide us than the guest that I have on today. Now, I know her as Karenlynn, right? But the TikTok and the social media world knows her as KL the Wildlife Rehabilitator. And she really is. She's a rock star in my book. She's a complete powerhouse. She's a registered nurse, a former NYC MC medic, a passionate music lover, a fierce supporter of the local arts. And I know that firsthand. She supports my dear friend Mick Blankenship wholeheartedly. And obviously an unstoppable advocate for wildlife. Now, I'm going to stress this again. I'll admit, I'm a little biased here. I've rescued my fair share of animals, which is why we met. And I'm talking dogs, pigeons, hamsters. Just recently, I rescued a feral cat who was pregnant. And thankfully, she's back now. She's in the backyard here. She was fixed. But the point I'm trying to make is I have an affinity for our fur babies, right? You name it. So for me, animals before people, no question. I get a lot of heat for that. I don't really give a shit. It's my show. I could do whatever I want. I spoke to Karenlynn before. She chuckled about that. And when I see someone out there giving their heart to this mission, I have nothing but full-on respect. And here's the thing, guys. KL isn't just saving animals. She's supporting communities, as I mentioned before. She jumps to help musicians out on tour. She's a giver through and through. And honestly, I could watch her pamper and care for squirrels for hours. And I got to tell you, I'm not the only one. When she's on TikTok, she has about 1,000 people at points, where they're watching, and she's really in depth as to what she's doing. She really is the real deal. So we're just getting warmed up. And when we come back, we're diving into what makes KL a true force in the world of wildlife rehabilitation. And I need to stress this once again. She's not just healing, right? She's saving lives, one fur baby, as I call them, at a time. So stick around. You don't want to miss this.
Welcome to the VIP Voice, the ultimate podcast where communication gets a serious upgrade. Hosted by yours truly, Manny Cabo. We'll be diving into tools, tricks, and techniques to level up your speaking game. And it doesn't matter whether you're in front of the mic, crowd, or just having that all-important one-on-one. Every episode brings real, raw, and inspiring stories from pros across all industries who are turning heads, breaking barriers, and showing up as their best selves. All here to help you do the same. So buckle up, because it's time to unleash your voice and make every word count. So let's get into it, and welcome to the VIP Voice.
All right, welcome back, guys. As promised, and without further ado, let's welcome to the VIP Voice the incredible KL, the Wildlife Rehabilitator. What's up, KL, and welcome to the VIP Voice.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited about this.
Are you? Or are you just saying that because I'm always following you?
No, I am. We met on TikTok, but I am so thrilled to meet somebody who is as passionate as I am about caring for animals, whether it be domestic or wildlife. It's really heartwarming for me, and it restores my faith in humanity, because when you're doing wildlife rehab, unfortunately, you do see a lot of cruelty, but then you see the other side where people really go above and beyond.
Yeah.
So there's a balance, but it can tip either way.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm glad that you opened up with that one, because we're going to segue right into question number one. So talk to me, when you first encounter an injured or an abandoned animal, what's your personal thought process, and how do you decide the best way to intervene? Can you walk us through that, what I think is an emotional, but more importantly, a tactical journey?
Well, for me, I'm a former New York City paramedic. I'm also an RN. And trauma is trauma, sick is sick. That has always been my mantra, that species really doesn't matter.
Love it.
And I think that's one of the things that makes me such a good rehabber is that I treat them the same way I would treat a human. So assess the situation. What predicament are they in? Are they safe? How do I get them out of the situation with them being safe and with me being safe? And the thing that complicates it more with animals is that you can't really explain to them what you're doing.
Exactly.
So if they're entangled in a fence or a net or stuck in a tree, it makes it a little bit more complicated, but I have a lot of experience having the background of extrication and rescue coming into this really made it a lot easier. So for me, again, safety for both me and the animal is paramount. And then after that, and I'm laughing because, I will run across highways without them stopping traffic.
No, wait. You and me both. That's the funny thing. Like, I've got a smirk on my face as I'm talking to myself internally. I'm like, oh my God, if she only knew. But of course she knows. She's probably been through a million more scenarios than I have. So I'm glad that you're jumping down this path as well. But go ahead, continue. I want to hear this because there is a part two. There's a part two to this question. Go ahead.
One of my more viral videos on TikTok was I had run across the Wanto Highway in Long Island to grab an opossum on the divider. And the best way that I can ensure the grab was to let him bite me. So I put my hand in his mouth so he would clamp down. And
you have got to be kidding me.
No.
So aren't you afraid of like rabies? Or aren't you afraid of any type of diseases that they carry? Obviously, because they're not the cleanest of creatures. Or correct me wrong without insulting you, of course, because I don't know. I don't have that background.
Most wildlife is very clean. Opossums, rats, squirrels, very clean animals. But you do need to know the zoonotic risks. My nursing background is in community and public health. So for me, I'm very aware of the potential risks, and I do take precautions. For most of the animals that I handle, there is minimal risk, and good hand washing after your interaction is really enough. I am, however, fully vaccinated against rabies. I've had pre-exposure series and post-exposure series.
Wow. That's incredible. So, so there certainly is a health risk, obviously, but you're more than prepared. So, and I'm glad you're touching on that because most people, like I said, don't know. That's why I felt it imperative to get you on here. See, I didn't know that. I'd be terrified if I saw a raccoon because you hear there's so much negative hearsay. No, you can't. They're disgusting animals. They're dirty. They bite you. You're going to turn into this ravenous person. But you have to take it with a grain of salt, of course. But again, your professional knowledge of all that stuff would help someone listen. Well, how bad could it be unless it bites me? Not that I'm going to give my flesh away that easily, but at least I don't have to worry about something too severe to happen. So the second part of that question, was there a moment during a rescue that, how do I say this, that completely changed how you see life or even how you see yourself?
Yes. Seeing the absolute sentience of these creatures. I had a baby squirrel who came to me one day. He ran up to human beings. That's what they do when they're in trouble. And I told the people, watch out, there's never just one. And sure enough, the next day they found his sister. And he was in a cage of singletons. There were 7 squirrels in that cage. And I put his sister into the pile. She ran out because she was afraid. Only one squirrel ran after her, and it was him.
Wow. And
she was very weak, very debilitated, and he sat there cleaning her, cuddling her, and then looking at me, telling me he knew she was in trouble and looking to me for help.
It's incredible.
I had another instance where somebody else rescued a crow. It had flown into a sewer, and they just asked if I could hold it overnight. It was wet, and a bird with wet feathers can't fly. It was put into a car and driven about 15 minutes to my house. I put it in a cage outside. I gave it a nice meal, dried it off as best I could. And I do talk to the animals. So I told him in the morning, when you dry, I'm going to let you go. I don't know how much they understand, but I think they feel the intent.
Sure.
At night, I covered his cage. I went out about 5 a.m. to uncover his cage, give him some breakfast, go back out about 45 minutes later, and his mate is sitting on top of that cage.
That's incredible.
How did she find him?
It's like a scene in a movie. I know, right?
He was driven 15 minutes, put in a car, and she knew where he was. She knew how to find him. Like the bond that you see that these animals have with each other. And it is almost 2 years since that incident. Those crows, just the two of them, are outside of my house every morning. They know exactly what time I walk my dog, and they're waiting for me.
It's incredible. It does appear like they're all on the same frequency. The intuition on these animals are incredible. And it's funny because when I brought back Boo, is her name, by the way, her brother Ashes wouldn't come around. I guess maybe he went after looking for, but now they're both here, they're crawling up and down, and you could feel the happiness that they have. Now they're outside playing. So certainly I've witnessed that on my part as well. And it's truly fascinating how they're able to communicate I shouldn't say without talking, because they have their own ways of communicating, but something of that distance, it's like more telepathic than anything if you start thinking about it, right?
One thing that is notable to me, when I do a release of an animal that has been in my care for an extended period of time, especially an animal that came in as an adult.
Yeah.
Without fail, every single time as they are leaving, they turn around and they pause, they look at me, and then they continue on their way. I really believe their way of saying thank you.
Yeah. Their nod of confirmation, right? Exactly. I've seen multiple videos like that, and you've witnessed it firsthand. Like, that's incredible. And I've felt it, actually. I have felt it multiple times. One time with a puppy and one time with a pigeon. Kept coming back. It's like, hey, how are you? It's crazy. So moving on, right? And it's obvious, not only to me, but your entire community, that you truly have a real gift, sharing their stories, as you just did, in a way that truly inspires people to care, because I see the comments in your thread, right? So how do you use your voice? Because this is a show about empowering voices, inspiration, eloquently speaking. And in what you do, you cover all the spectrum, especially the storytelling part. And how do you do it to create a bigger impact beyond just the rescue itself? I want you to answer this now. I personally know the answer just by witnessing you. I've spent countless, I could honestly say, at least 2 hours worth of time if you were to compile the segments that I sit in your sessions. You're so consistent. You're so knowledgeable. But I'll let you answer this question for me. Go for it.
I think it's a matter of stepping back and observing. Just watching them, watching their behavior, and being willing to see them as sentient.
Yeah.
Allowing purpose to their actions. And when you do that, and I'm narrating what they do.
Yeah.
I'm not putting my spin on it. I'm not putting my feelings, my emotions. I'm just narrating what comes natural to them.
Now, I got to stop you there. So I was getting to that part. I know I always have these 2-part segments because I find this so fascinating. I was going to ask you, what advice would you give others about using their voice authentically and fearlessly? Those are the 2 biggest elements, especially in what you do, because you really do. You have this engrossing quality about yourself, and that didn't happen overnight. These are qualities that are learned. Do you feel that came directly from the nursing side, or was it the street side from dealing with all these strays side. Or was it was okay, great, go ahead.
When you are doing pre-hospital care, the situations have absolutely no control to them. You have no idea what you are walking into, and so you need to be able to take everything in. You need to watch your back, you need to watch your partner, you need to watch what's happening on the street. Now, I work New York City EMS long before we had cell phones and cameras everywhere. We had our radios and our partners, and that was it.
Yeah.
So you really needed to be aware. But the other aspect of it is that we are diagnosing illness. We were treating heart attacks on the street without blood work.
Yeah.
So our observation skills really need to be spot on.
And sometimes not in the safest areas. Like your head has to be on a swivel. I get it.
I worked in Red Hook in the 90s. So that was really the most busy area for trauma in New York City at that time.
Oh.
So we jokingly had T-shirts made up that said Kings County Knife and Gun Club, because that's what every weekend was. We had more shootings and stabbings. I'll let you in on a little secret.
Please.
I was supposed to be the star of the first reality show ever.
Interesting.
It was a William Shatner production. It was called Emergency on Scene. It evolved into, I think, Emergency 911 when it became a scripted show. He wanted the unit in New York City with the highest amount of trauma, and he wanted to follow up the paramedics around, and it was me and my partner. Again, the world was not used to cameras being everywhere.
Sure.
And to make the long story short, there was a shooting, and in the emergency room, they, after cracking the person's chest, cut their down jacket off. And feathers got inside everywhere, and you cannot survive that. So the show was canceled. But we were dealing with so many things at one time. Our safety, the area that I worked, I think Stand By Me, the movie with the principal where he was.
Yes.
That's the neighborhood I worked in.
You said it all. Okay. Yeah. That's pretty severe. It's intense. It's like Irvington where I live.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is.
Around this area.
So you get used to multitasking in your head. And you have to do that with animals, but your observation skills become so important because they can't speak to you.
Sure. That can be so frustrating. It's like a baby. You know, my wife and I have this all the time. Remember, those are the worst years, 1 and 2, where they really cannot communicate with you. They can't conjugate sentence. You got to figure out and assume, is it the tummy? Is it the head? What is it? You know, so I'm sure it's frustrating on a daily basis for you.
There are things that you notice are universal after pain in a certain area is going to elicit a certain behavior.
Interesting.
And you learn to read them. And the more relaxed you are with them, the more comfortable you make them feel, the easier they become to handle. It becomes a lot less dangerous. Yeah.
They're more in tune or more sensitive to your emotions. I know that from a dog standpoint, you know, and they tell you all the time, if you're stressed out, you hold a dog and it just changes your mood. And it's so true. I'm assuming that's what, in essence, what you're trying to tell me, right?
Yep.
Same thing with cats, that purring. It's like, it just, I don't know what the hell it is, but it just puts you in the state of ease.
Yeah. And that's a reverse, you know, where their emotion feeds you.
Yeah. That's incredible. So listen, thank you so much for sharing that. First of all, that I'm sure you dealt with your fair share of certain moments that you wish never did. I mean, we all do, but in those type of circumstances where you truly have to watch your 6, your 9, your 2, all military terms coming into play with that. So now that adds to this next question I wanted to ask you. So in a world where obviously you just alluded to, there's so much suffering that goes on, right? And unfortunately, it's unseen. What has working with vulnerable wildlife taught you about, how do I say it, the resilience in both animals and in yourself? Like, for example, for anyone out there who's struggling to find their purpose and passion, you know, because I always have a reason behind a question that I want to ask you. For those that are struggling with those, like, what lessons from the animal world would you want them to hear?
So I have gotten involved in another community. Okay. It happened very much by accident. I got a call to rescue a piglet in Howard Beach, Queens.
Okay.
And I had never rescued farm animals. I really had no idea. But I knew their strengths. I knew their behaviors. And again, being in tune with animals in general.
Yeah.
And so I got a call. My friend John and I we ran to Howard Beach. We had the federal park police there. We had NYPD there. And everybody's standing around scratching their heads. What do we do? I jumped in, grabbed this pig, got it. I cut the fence, climbed through, got the pig.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
I'm used to taking charge of scenes. I really am. If
I can see that.
if you don't give an authoritative appearance, I mean, I walked in and I started giving the feds orders, and they're just doing exactly what I asked.
Yeah.
It's very important to, I'm polite. I don't usually take the time to say please and thank you until afterwards. I just very terse but direct orders.
Yeah.
Because
Well, you have to be. Listen, in all fairness to you, I'm sorry to cut you off, but you have to be in a situation like that. People need guidance. And when you do have that authoritative voice, people automatically link it to, she's got to know what she's doing because she's responding one thing after the next and giving us all advice. So yeah, I can see it.
So we rescued the pig. I knew nothing about farm animals. I knew nothing about pigs. Brought this creature home. I could tell it was skinny. It had bilateral pink eye. It was covered in a rash. I just fed it. It's 1:30 in the morning when I got back to my house. I had a bag of cut up vegetables that I had prepared for the squirrels. Took out this poor creature was eating. And then I'm looking at him and I see somebody has cut off his tail.
That's terrible.
Somebody's cut off his ears. And I'm horrified that this animal has been absolutely tortured. And first thing in the morning, I'm at my wildlife vet, who unbeknownst to me, had actually studied pigs at Cornell.
Yeah.
She helped me get him out of the car. He was so terrified. Bring him home.
Sure.
He lied down in my backyard in the sun for the first time in his life. And then after a little while, I just sat out there with him, didn't go near him. He came over and he put his head in my lap.
Sure. Built that trust, of course. Yeah.
People had
That's
just
awful.
tortured him. They cut his tail off. They cut his ears off. Just the most horrific things. And in under 48 hours, he is bonding to me. He is trusting me. He is trusting my entire family. My son taught him to sit in an hour and a half, smarter than any dog I had ever seen. And then when I realized how smart he was, he had to have made a conscious decision to trust me.
Yeah. I think out of desperation, he's like, well, how bad could it possibly be? If I was the animal thinking at that point, wow.
Well, I don't know if it's desperation as interpreting behavior. Like I had not done anything threatening to him.
Of course. Yeah.
Being able to discriminate, that's what I'm really looking to point out, that he was intelligent enough to discriminate bad from good, kind from unkind.
Yeah. Well, pigs are known to be very, very intelligent. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
So for me, just that changed me instantly.
I think it would change everybody. Poor baby. I mean, she's terrified by itself. I can't even imagine the cruelty that it underwent. So let's just leave it at that because I don't want to rekindle bad moments for you because that pisses me off just by hearing it now. And I wasn't even there. So this leads to the final moment of the show. God, it's right. It goes back so quickly. Many people, they do want to help actually, right? And I'm sure you've encountered this, but they don't know where to start. So what advice would you give to someone who finds an animal in distress, right? Or more importantly, how can they find their own voice to advocate for animals the way that you have? Because you are definitely the person I would think would be the go-to.
Okay. Few things. The first thing you really need to do, if you come across an animal in need, secure it. Too many people, oh, wait a second, I'm going to go call somebody and see if I can find somebody to help me first. Even if you have to put a box over them. If you're afraid to pick them up, just get something over them, protect them, because an animal who is in trouble is going to look to hide, not interact with a human. So first things first, secure the animal. There is now an incredible app. It's called Animal Help Now. And it will help somebody who has found orphan, injured, or sick wildlife find a wildlife rehabber near them by zip code. It's
Animal Help Now.
correct.
That's brilliant.
All one word,
Okay.
exclamation point at the end, and it is phenomenal. It is more complete than the state lists. It's the single most complete resource. But what's great about that app is not only does it help finders of wildlife, it helps people who want to volunteer to work with wildlife find mentors near them.
Wow, that's great. It's like an institution in one app. Oh, I'm going to have to get them to sponsor the show because you know me and my affinity and, our affinity, I should say, for animals. That's very, very, very cool.
If you want to volunteer, if you want to work with wildlife, part of the problem is that everywhere in the country, it is typically a home-based activity. We are all volunteers working out of our homes. There are a few rehab centers around, but they're few and far between.
Yeah.
So when you take the animals on, you are responsible for them 24/7. Can't take a vacation. You can't get hurt. You can't get sick. When I have babies in my care like this, I have to stop doing rescue. I get hurt on a rescue, they're in trouble. So it's very hard for somebody who has a family or a full-time job to take this on, which is one of the...
I noticed that. I'm sorry once again to cut you off, but I did notice that with Boo when I called these, these no-kill shelters. I'd say 9 out of 10 of them who call me, they're all residences. Sweet people. They're like, oh, well, I don't have any more room in the living room. I'm like, wait, what? And I had to rewind. See, I had no idea. But apparently in my area where I reside, you can't really trust, shelters because they put them down. And that's not what I was looking to do. And unfortunately, many of these places here in the city where they're just bombarded with so many strays, they can't do that. And I don't have the heart to go down that path. But that's an incredible app. And I'm glad I'm going to have to be rewinding this and post it all over, my socials when I'm done. So now that we've come to the winter seasons of the show, KL, first of all, thank you, and I want to edify you here and show people what you're all about. So can you tell us where to find you? And is there something that you would really like to take a moment to advertise or plug in that can really benefit your organization and what you're doing? And I need something like that. I really, really do, because I'm just amazed that they have an app for that. Because I have to make sure I download it. My mother has it, my wife, my daughter, everybody. But go ahead, please share.
So I have started a 501c3 organization called Long Island Wildlife Rescue and Rehabilitation. And I am trying very hard to raise funds to open up a rehab facility, a 24/7 rehab facility here in Nassau County.
Awesome.
With my background, again, as a hospital administrator, running a hospital for humans or for animals, really the same thing. And I would like to be the model of a community-based collaborative rehab center where people who want to do this, who can't do it full-time, can get involved.
That's great.
I had an accident. I got a simple splinter with pressure-treated wood. The formaldehyde started to kill my finger, and I needed emergency surgery.
Wow.
The doctor wanted me in the hospital that day. It took me over 24 hours to place all of my babies.
That's crazy.
To have emergency surgery.
Yeah.
Another rehabber, high-volume squirrel rehabber, her husband had a stroke. You can't have an emergency in your life when you have these babies because there's nobody else to care for them. So we have a community-based center. My approach is not just animal care, because I really believe that animals, our wildlife, is everybody's responsibility, but it should be nobody's burden.
I agree.
Everybody doing a little bit gets everything done very easily.
Yeah.
So I've spoken to a local university. They want their accounting students to learn how to do accounting for a 501c3, working with my organization. They want their PR students to get involved with fundraising. So this school takes a very broad volunteer approach. So even if you don't want to be hands-on with the animals, there is a way to work towards supporting the wildlife in our community.
That's badass. That's crazy. And like I said, you got my vote already, obviously, and evidenced by me, being so enthralled when you decided to come on the show. I just wanted to give back because, like I said, you have such a supportive community, but you know so much and you truly do it with passion. And that's one of the things that I really hold in my highest regard. I really, really do. And anything that my listeners and myself included can do to assist you on your journeys and saving as many fur babies as we possibly can, believe me, I'm on board because you are, for me, the perfect advocate for such a cause. I really do. And again, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Going along with my mantra of it being everybody's responsibility and nobody's burden.
Mm-hmm.
I have a link tree in my bio on TikTok.
Okay.
I believe it's the first button, but I will switch it around to make sure it's the first button if it's not. It's a dollar campaign. I ask everybody who possibly can to send a single dollar, just $1.
Sure.
And tell 10 friends. Ask them to do the same.
Yeah.
And
I mean, listen, guys, if you could spend $5 on a goddamn cup of freaking Starbucks coffee, you can give $1 to save a fur ball. Absolutely.
I'm just going to show you an example of the kind of creatures that get help here.
Oh, I got to see this. And the audio people are going to be at a loss, but when I post this on YouTube, people are going to, oh my God, look at that thing. It's an opossum. I get it. Some people find them squeamish. I'm such a sucker for, animals that look like rodents, hamsters, squirrels, and they're amazing to me.
So opossums are nature's cleanup crew.
Yeah.
And they eat a ton of insects. So they eat ticks and they eat small rodents. If you have an opossum hanging around your house, you either have an insect or a rodent problem because they're finding a food source. So
nobody touch the opossums. Leave the opossums alone. All right. So there. I made a public service announcement in my studio. KL, I love you. You're amazing. Thank you so much for doing what you do in the world. You are certainly making the world a better place, especially a better world for our wildlife. So thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for sharing your insights. And believe me, I'm going to make sure I jot down. I'm going to have to reach out to you and get all of these links. So I'll put it in my show notes and people could find it. Now, when you go back to your TikTok, make sure you tell them about the episode and, help your community support you. If they support the episode, they're supporting you. And one hand washes the other. And I know you're going to concede to this because as an athlete all my life, I was always taught that success is a team sport, and teamwork makes the dream work. All it takes is $1, a few hands here and there, and that's how you build. So I hope that your journey with these schools and having them learn accounting and assisting you on your organization, that's where it all starts. It starts with a dream, and somebody who's passionate about that dream to execute it successfully. So you are definitely the right person for it. So thank you once again on behalf of myself, my staff, and all my listeners. We really appreciate you coming on the show.
I really appreciate you having me and showcasing this issue. It's very important to me and I believe to a lot of people. So thank you again.
Absolutely. You take care of yourself, and we're definitely going to keep on talking off the show, okay?
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.